February 23, 2026. Peter Mandelson, Britain's former ambassador to the United States, arrested at his London home. This is what he wrote to Epstein 1 year after Epstein's conviction for procuring a minor for prostitution. In what areas, policy, social, or sexual? One of 6,270. 6,270 messages, 107 before the conviction, over 6,000 after, a 57-fold increase. The contact did not stop when the law caught up with him. Those messages are now with the Metropolitan Police. The investigation centers on market-sensitive leaks from Inside Number 10, sent to a convicted sex offender's inbox. He has not been charged. He denies criminal wrongdoing. The emails are public. These documents were recovered from investigations into the sexual exploitation of minors. The survivors aren't what this covers. They're the reason it exists. Peter Mandelson, grandson of Herbert Morrison, architect of New Labour. The tabloids called him the Prince of Darkness. Epstein saw something simpler, a man with enormous political reach, drawn to wealth and the people who held it, and twice scandals serious enough to cost him a cabinet post. Born 1953, Hampstead Garden suburb, grandson of Herbert Morrison, the wartime Home Secretary whose air raid shelters protected millions. By 1985, Mandelson is communications director for the Labour Party, the man who rebrands it and hands Blair the keys. 1998, Trade Secretary, first peak, then the first fall, a secret home loan from a fellow minister, resigned within days. He came back, Northern Ireland. Then the Hinduja passport scandal, January 2001. Second resignation. Most politicians don't survive one resignation. Mandelson survived two. 2004, EU Commissioner for Trade. October 2008, Gordon Brown brings him back as Lord Mandelson Business Secretary. The third comeback, and in those years, a new patronage network took hold, one that never appeared in any official register. It traced back to a townhouse on East 71st Street. London, June 2002. The introduction. June 2002. Mandelson writes to Ghislaine Maxwell, "I love disgusting. That's why I am wild and dangerous and twice fallen." He knew who she was and he wanted in. By the time Maxwell wrote, the social link was already photographed. Mandelson, Epstein, and Prince Andrew at Martha's Vineyard around the year 2000. Three powerful men in private, 2 years before the email archive begins. Maxwell's offer wasn't just social, it was access, and Mandelson was already saying yes. September 2002. Politically isolated, Mandelson writes to Maxwell, "I feel so low that I can hardly communicate. Missing you. Love P." Her response is immediate, personal support and political access to Bill Clinton offered in the same breath. Then came the test. October 2005, Brussels. October 2005, Mandelson is European Commissioner for Trade. Epstein is under criminal investigation in Florida for sex offenses. Mandelson emails him asking about Christmas at his private island. "Do I fit into your plans?" Epstein offers to pay. The trip is not on the record. The asking is. The New York townhouse on East 71st Street. Stays documented. Dinners documented. Travel paid for. $7,486 in commercial flights, picked up by Epstein. By 2005, Epstein was choosing the venues, covering the costs. Mandelson was messaging from London, asking to be included. It read like a junior staffer chasing his boss for a meeting, not friendship, dependency. May 2006. Under criminal investigation in Florida for sex offenses, Epstein writes that he's taken a polygraph and, in his words, passed with flying colors. Mandelson doesn't express concern. He keeps reading. July 2006. The FBI is closing in. Mandelson is already speaking the language of the defense team. He calls Epstein well handled, like a client, not a friend. Then, any developments? Keep me posted. He didn't ask about the victims. He wanted to know if Epstein was going to win. October 2007, Epstein proposes a formal retainer involving Deutsche Bank. 3 years later, the offer lands, $4 to $10 million a year. The Deutsche Bank CEO writes internally the hire is, quote, to access governments, families, and corporations. Mandelson is being priced not on what he knows, but on who he can deliver. And Epstein, soon to be convicted, has positioned himself as the broker. January 2008, the case is, in Mandelson's own words, realistically salvageable. He tells Epstein he will really go for it, a serving European commissioner, coordinating the defense strategy of a man accused of the exploitation of children. June 30, 2008, Jeffrey Epstein walks into a Florida courtroom and pleads guilty. The charge, procuring a child for prostitution. He is now, in law, a convicted sex offender. From this point on, anyone who stays in contact in any capacity is making a deliberate choice. Mandelson made that choice within the week. 107 messages before the conviction, 6,163 after, a 57-fold increase. The contact did not slow down after the guilty plea. It accelerated. June 24th, Epstein sends the news. 18 months, starting Monday. Mandelson doesn't say goodbye. He's en route to Moscow. Hours later, he writes back, "You have just left the island. Be strong." He knew exactly where Epstein had been. June 25th, a formal email, signed the Right Honourable Peter Mandelson, European Commissioner for Trade. "I think the world of you. Your friends stay with you and love you." A signed declaration of support for a convicted sex offender 1 day after sentencing. After the conviction, the deniability is gone. Mandelson signs the email with his full title and keeps writing. Every message that follows is a choice. Repeated, deliberate, documented. Peter Mandelson chose to stay. May 2009. Less than a year after the conviction, Mandelson is now business secretary asking Epstein for advice. Epstein's reply, "Don't be lazy, get on a plane." Then a Saturday morning exchange with one redacted message in the middle, 4 hash symbols where the content should be, withheld from the public release. June 2009. From his government office, Mandelson forwards an internal briefing note to Epstein's personal Gmail. Interesting note that's gone to the PM. Cabinet briefing material sent directly to a convicted sex offender. August 2009. Mandelson is business secretary. Epstein is weeks out of prison after his conviction for procuring a child for prostitution. Epstein asks Mandelson to host his, quote, goddaughter inside Downing Street and the House of Lords. Mandelson asks one question. "How old?" Epstein replies. 15. Mandelson responds, "Fine on all." He writes back that he is trying his best to accommodate. March 31st, 2010. The Chancellor, Alistair Darling, meets Larry Summers, Obama's chief economic advisor on banking regulation. Mandelson's private secretary forwards him the briefing. 5 minutes later, Mandelson forwards it to Epstein. The next day, Mandelson meets Summers himself. The minutes arrive on his desk at 1:22 p.m. They are with Epstein by 2. The leak is not a one-off. It is the operating procedure. To July 2009, Epstein writes, "Bold moves needed for September." Mandelson asks one question. In what areas? Policy, social, or sexual? Epstein's answer is one word. All, plus educational, plus financial. September 2009. The money is explicit now. Mandelson's partner Reynaldo asks Epstein about school fees. The reply, one word, included. £10,000, wired from a convicted sex offender to a senior British minister's household. Just another line on the ledger. November 2009. Gordon Brown is Prime Minister. Mandelson is his business secretary. Epstein is telling him what to say. Tell GB you are loyal. First, second, and third. Then, I never mention you to Landon. Keep it that way. Landon, the New York Times finance reporter Epstein cultivated for years. The relationship was actively hidden from the press. a convicted sex offender coaching the most senior minister in the UK government on how to handle the Prime Minister. Mandelson takes notes. January 2010. Epstein writes, quote, "The worry of future blackmails." In the same email, he advises Mandelson on how to use the political moment. Financial intelligence and political strategy moved through with the casualness of an established broker. Epstein is not on the margins of this world. He is running it. May 9th, 2010. Epstein messages first. €500 billion bailout almost complete. Mandelson confirms it from Downing Street, hours before the public announcement. The next day, he tips Epstein off about Gordon Brown's resignation. 2 market-moving leaks in 24 hours. Both from inside number 10. Christmas Day, 2010. Epstein asks Mandelson to find him a new assistant. Multilingual, 22 to 25, wants to travel, or alternatively, find a house in Marrakesh. The former Secretary of State for Business, running errands for a convicted sex offender on Christmas morning. Mandelson asks Epstein to set up a meeting with Bill Gates. By February 2011, Gates is dining at Epstein's New York townhouse, Mandelson at the same table. JP Morgan's Jess Staley uses the same channel. In January 2010, asking Epstein to get him in front of Mandelson and the Chancellor at Davos. Bloomberg reports Mandelson actively pushed a Republic of Congo bank deal through the same network. Epstein's office names Mandelson in invitations to Eric Schmidt. For the billionaires and the tech founders, Mandelson gives the whole arrangement a veneer of British establishment respectability. He is not a guest in this network. He is the reason it functions. And this was what the network bought him. January 2010. Lazard, Senior Advisor. June 2010. Deutsche Bank, $4 to $10 million a year. The CEO writing internally that the hire was for, quote, access to governments, families, and corporations. And in 2010, he co-founded Global Counsel. The asset had cashed out. March 2015, 7 years after the conviction. Mandelson writes to Epstein not as a former contact, but as a current friend. All well, thanks. Time heals. No regret, no distance. Just the assumption nobody would go looking. Time did not heal anything. It gave the investigators a head start. 17 years before the police arrived at his door, he wrote this to the man whose archive would arrest him. "You are the only person who knows everything about me. Don't go away." It was true. September 11th, 2025. Bloomberg publishes the first wave of Epstein-Mandelson emails. Within hours, Starmer fires him. The emails the Prime Minister calls reprehensible. Mandelson demands £547,000, the rest of his 4-year contract. He is given 75. The third fall begins, this time from his own party. February 19th, 2026. Metropolitan Police seize his devices and communications. 14 years of emails, no longer private evidence. The investigation centers on 2008 to 2010. Market-sensitive leaks, school fees, wires from Epstein to accounts analysts have linked to Mandelson. Figures still under legal review. The $500 billion EU bailout, Mandelson tipped Epstein off hours before the public announcement, every line item a potential charge. February 23, 2026. Peter Mandelson is arrested at his London home on suspicion of misconduct in public office. The Metropolitan Police seize his devices. He denies all allegations. What he had assumed was long gone had been rebuilt from the Epstein servers. Global Counsel, the advisory firm Mandelson co-founded, leaving Brussels. 2 decades of access sold by the hour. Now under regulatory scrutiny on both sides of the Atlantic. Clients filing for the exits. Released on bail. Baron Mandelson of Foy and Hartlepool. He came back from 2 resignations before. This is different. By March 6th, his passport is returned and he is released under investigation. The Metropolitan Police now have 14 years of his email. 10th of March, the King's Order in Council strikes Mandelson from the Privy Council, the body of the Crown's senior advisors. 5 weeks earlier, he had quit the Labour Party. The institutions he had helped shape were formally distancing themselves. By March, the documents had begun to come out. Cabinet Office vetting and propriety teams had raised concerns before the appointment was finalised. A year earlier, the appointment had been authorised anyway. The full picture of who authorised it and how would not be public until April. 16th of April, 2026. The Guardian reports what had happened a year earlier. The 28th of January 2025, UK security vetting denied Mandelson developed clearance, the highest tier background check in British government. The Foreign Office reached for a rarely used authority and overruled the security service. The appointment went ahead anyway. Same afternoon, Starmer dismisses Sir Ollie Robbins, the serving permanent secretary of the Foreign Office, sacked over the appointment he had inherited. His predecessor had signed the overrule. Robbins paid for it. The political cost of Mandelson is no longer his alone. This is what they sent. Within weeks of the security service refusing him clearance, the Foreign Office overruled. Britain's ambassador to the United States in post by February 2025. 21st of April, 5 days after his sacking, Robbins walks into a committee room. The man Starmer had just fired now had nothing left to protect. He uses 2 words: constant pressure, frequent calls from Downing Street. The interest, he says, was, quote, never whether the appointment would be cleared, only when. 24th of April. The European Anti-Fraud Office opens its own investigation. 4 bodies now examine him at once: Metropolitan Police, OLAF, the Cabinet Office, the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. 28th of April, the man who ran the Foreign Office before Robbins testifies in turn. Sir Philip Barton describes how he learned of his successor's appointment. Quote, "I was presented with a decision and told to get on with it." Barton did not authorise this appointment. He was instructed to deliver it. Same morning, Starmer's former Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, tells the committee he asked officials to act at pace. He admits recommending Mandelson was, in his own words, a serious mistake. Learning the full extent of the Epstein links, he says, was a knife through his soul. If Mandelson had told the truth, McSweeney says, he would not have come close to being appointed. That afternoon, Parliament itself votes the motion. Should the Prime Minister face a formal inquiry for potentially misleading the House over the Mandelson vetting? 335 vote no, 223 vote yes. Labour MPs, whipped to protect their leader, hold the line by 112. Starmer survives the vote. He does not survive the question. This is what 14 years of one inbox cost. Not just a man, not just a career, a government answering to its own legislature for the appointment of an ambassador it appears to have known should never have been made. The story you have just watched is no longer about Peter Mandelson alone. When the FBI raided Jeffrey Epstein's properties, they recovered 180,000 photographs. Prince Andrew is in dozens, Peter Mandelson is in a handful, the bathrobes photo at Martha's Vineyard, and the photos accompanying his 10-page inscription in Epstein's 50th birthday book, where he called him his best pal. Andrew was a trophy, Mandelson was an asset. Trophies get photographed, assets get emailed. Photographs are moments, emails are years. The archive he had no reason to fear, the archive the police are reading. Four days before they came for Mandelson, they came for Prince Andrew. Same archive, different prince. Episode 2 of Darkness Visible. Coming in.